Makasaysayang araw po. It's Xiao time! I was actually shocked to learn recently that in some universities, the discipline of history is actually considered as part of the humanities and not as a social science. Why is the distinction important between treating history as humanities or making it part of the social sciences? Why does it matter? Well, in many ways, history is indeed part of the humanities since it is also considered part of the liberal arts. Born out of the Enlightenment period in Europe, which saw equality of man. The term liberal from liberal arts came from the Latin word meaning free, libera, free from the strong influence of the church and the king, and with the reason of man as center. With this came a more scientific approach to solving problems. That is why, although science is very much connected to humanism, the humanities became a catchphrase relating to arts and literature more than the sciences. And the emphasis in art and literature is creativity and imagination. How reality is represented, in the terms used by Manolo Quezon, through make-believe. It can also be about things out of this world. We see this in the creative outputs in novels, short stories, poetry, and cinema. History is part of the humanities, sure. Because you have people like Barbara Tuchman or Teodoro Agoncillo who wrote history like you're reading a novel. They can be great literature. And although Agoncillo stressed that a certain level of historical imagination is exercised when writing good history, I believe that to make history as merely part of the humanities leaves a very important characteristic of history that is different from the rest of the humanities. Literature, music, fine arts. That imagining and creating its narrative cannot be based on make-believe, but could only be based on evidence. And this is where, although the output of historians is written, they are constructed using the historical method. Hence, it is considered more than literature, but a science. Not being part of the hard sciences, it is a social science. A certain methodology is used to determine if the documents and sources are genuine or not, which is called external criticism. The truthfulness of the account itself, which is internal criticism, by comparing it with other sources. And although, like literature, history must be interpretative, and failure to do so makes a historyteller a mere antiquarian, analysis is key. Its interpretations and analysis could only be based on what really happened. The best your evidence and sources can construct them. Another thing that separates history from journalism or art is the familiarity of historians with the general narrative of Philippine history. Because the difference between the historian and the mere antiquarian is the capacity to contextualize these singular events and see their connections to other parts of that general history. It is not enough to find one primary source, make a narrative out of it, and call oneself a historian. To dilute history as merely literature or humanities takes away the emphasis on evidence and analysis. History is scientific. That is why Teodoro Agoncillo and Encarnacion Alzona were awarded national scientists rather than national artists. To make it otherwise allows the view that history can be twisted for the purposes of some, in the name of artistic license or even politics. This has been Xiao Chua, a public historian, and that was Xiao Time.